Hello, everyone, and welcome to this experimental Actual Fluency Video Podcast. As many of you know, I've been doing the Actual Fluency Podcast as an audio podcast for the last 7 or so years. And with the occasional video sprinkled in, it was just a basic Zoom kind of call, and we didn't really put much effort or work into it. I was traveling around the world, and so this is the first time that I'm really trying to get into video. And what happens when you try something new? You're usually terrible at it to begin with, which is actually the same as learning languages. And I have to obviously produce a lot of bad videos before I can start making them really good. So this is why it looks a little bit scuffed, and I've got this like frizzy looking hair. I will get better at it, and I will make sure that the quality gets better. But this is for those people who like to see podcasts rather than just listening to them. And for those of you who like to listen to podcasts, obviously nothing changes. I'll still be putting it out as a audio podcast on your iTunes feed or whatever you use to listen to podcasts with. You can find Actual Fluency there. Today I have a good friend, Rick Dearman, on the show talking about a few different things, but mainly one of his passion projects, which is his language learning forum on forum.language-learners.org. I think I got that right. I'll put it on the screen as well. And we talk about sort of the benefits you can get from engaging in a community of learners, not just on Facebook or other groups, but in a forum, which, if you're younger, then maybe a forum might sound a little ancient to you because they're not as popular as they used to be, but they have a lot of advantages over things like Facebook groups and other social media groups, because they have sort of threaded topics, and it's easier to keep track of questions. And if somebody got help from something before, then you can go in and see all the replies. It allows you to keep a log and everything. But I'll let Rick talk a little bit more about that later on, how he got into that and how he got into language learning as well. And we also talk just briefly about the Polyglot conference and gathering, the in-person language learning events that we had in pre-COVID times. So I hope you enjoy this new form of the Actual Fluency podcast. It was definitely a challenge for me to make it, and I know this video isn't amazing quality by any means, but hopefully you'll enjoy the content and you'll watch me as I learn the ropes of video editing and getting these out in a regular fashion so you can enjoy them if you want to see the video. So enjoy it and let me know below. Don't be too harsh on me, but I will see you for the next episode. Anyway, Rick, welcome to the podcast. It's
Right.
great to have you here. Can you give the listener just a little brief introduction of who you are, where you're from, and what your experience has been with language learning so far?
I work in IT. I work with computers. I used to be in the Air Force. I'm American, but I live in the UK now because my wife's English, and I never really had any interest whatsoever in languages until very late in life. My wife and I went to Italy for our anniversary, and I couldn't speak the language, and it was very frustrating. I did practice a little bit before I went, so I knew how to say please and thank you and things like that, and I practiced how to ask questions. But the snag is, of course, that people respond, and then you're messed up because it's like, what? Like you don't understand what they said. So I remember asking this guy where our hotel was, and I knew Dove, and I showed him the card with the name of the hotel because there's no way I was going to pronounce it. And he's like, and he's just, yeah, no, 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 no. And I'm like, oh. And I worked it out because he was like, straight there, go right. I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. But I went to Pompeii and got the bus okay, and then we tried to get on the train, and I said to this fella Pompeii, and he understood. Happy days, everybody's great. And then he said something in Italian, la 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 la, lira. I'm like, okay. So I handed him a note, and he was a very angry man, by the way. I must say, he was a very angry man, and he was like, lira. I'm like, oh, okay. So I gave another, and he was la 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 la, and I'm like, okay, whatever, dude. So I fanned out the money. I'm like, just take whatever you need. What is the problem here, And he's like, la la la. So he reached out, he snatched one of these bills out of my hand, right? He slams down his little cabinet cassette thing where the money is, unlocks his little booth, walks out, locks it, walks all the way across to his comrade, gets change and comes back. And I'm thinking, oh, I was giving him too much money. Oh, I get it, you know. And that's when I decided, yeah, I really should try and learn the language before I rock up again.
Right. So that's
So,
what you did.
yeah, well, I started out learning Italian, and I was very bad at it, and I couldn't progress because, you know, I was doing all this sort of, I was listening to the Pimsleur tapes and the audio teach yourself and all that, and it wasn't working. And then I moved to my house where I live now, and my neighbor is Italian. One of my neighbors is Italian, and I met her, and I'm like, oh, I've been trying to learn Italian, blah, 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 and I don't know anything. And so she spent about 6 or 8 months with me, and like an hour every couple of days, and taught me how to speak and read in Italian. And then I got a job with a French company, and I wanted to know what they were talking about or saying about me. And she also speaks French because she spent like 10 years in Belgium. And so she taught me French as well. So I learned better with personal instruction, you know, and talking to people. I'm not really good with I just can't force myself to sit down and read a book for 3 hours. I mean, there are people that do a load of desk study and stuff, but that's not me, you know, I can't do it. And I much prefer talking. So yeah, I'm very dysfunctional. So I can have conversation exchanges with like French people when I'm talking, and we're all talking and yakking very happy for like an hour. And then they text me something, and I try and text it back, and I can't spell, and I get it all wrong, and you know, because I don't practice any of that. So I'm not an example for any of your listeners by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but you've clearly embraced the UK's self-deprecating humor, at least. But no, one thing I want to mention to people here in the beginning is that we really like the community of the language learning. You can call it the Polyglot community or language learning community. The people basically who attend the conferences, who engage on the forums, who are active on Facebook, you know. And I found, and I have told the story before, but back in 2014, when I went to my first gathering, which was in Berlin at the time, I just met so many great, positive, growth-minded people. You know, these were people who were all learning languages. A lot of them were starting their own businesses in creative areas or in apps, or, you know, with that growing market. And I was just like, wow, it seems like language learning attracts, in general, a very nice person, you know. So I just decided to jump in there. But what is your experience with the community? I know we met, I think it was one of the Bratislava ones maybe a couple of years ago, but take us back a little bit further, because I know you were involved with some of the forums and maybe even before
so
I got involved.
I started out online trying to, after I started learning Italian, I started to find people online, and I found a site called howtolearnanylanguage.com, which pretty much everybody knows if you're in the Polyglot community, because like Richard Simcott was there, and pretty much everybody, you know,
It's
Moses
essentially a forum, right? So
so it was a forum, and everybody was there, and but there was some problems with it, where it kept falling over basically. And the guy who originally ran it, it's still running today. You can go there. It's just a bit of a ghost town.
okay.
There. But when things would fall over, it didn't work. He was never around. It'd take him like a week to fix it. And being an IT bod, I said, well, look, I'll set up a thing on my web server, and the next time it goes down, we can just use that temporarily until he brings it back up. But the problem was, I used this like new open source forum software, and everybody went, well, I like the new temporary one better.
Right.
And basically the new temporary one has been going about almost 10 years now, I think. So I'm running that as the forum administrator. pretty much everybody migrated over, and it's just been running in leaps and bounds. So just a plug, it's free. We don't charge people. It's not free. It cost me a fortune, but but we don't charge people. We don't have advertisements. We don't do anything. It is literally a community of people, and we have masses of resources and lists of things you can get from language. So it is a community. There's lots of people there. I think 7,000 or 8,000 users.
Yeah.
So it's massive. And many of those people that I met on the forum, I met in person at Berlin or Bratislava in the Polyglot gatherings. So it was nice that the Polyglot gathering in Berlin started to get people from the online world to meet in person. And more recently, it's just been a bunch of online stuff. So it sort of came full circle. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and this is language-learners.org.
Forum.language-learners.org. Yeah, that's the forum bit. But we do have a static website where we list, we have like guest blog posts and things like that. But the most popular thing is the forum, because that's where you can ask questions and get answers and find resources.
Yeah, I was checking it out recently. I'm not too much of a forum person myself, because I always get involved and then I forget about it for a while, and then I come back and I'm like, oh, I missed so much, I can't keep up. And I tried to do my own like log and basically a diary on the forum, which it can serve as a great accountability measure.
Yeah.
But for me, it's not too good. But I see tons of other people are doing that. So, and yours as well, of course, one of the most popular ones in there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've been doing it a long time, and I try and post every week about what I'm doing and how I'm doing. And it's very inspiring when you read about other people as well, because there's many people that they're having a very difficult life or time. We've got people that are in the middle of a sort of a civil war in their country or whatever, and they're still learning different languages, and you get these people and you're reading their logs and you're thinking, wow, that's really inspiring, and I'm just a lazy git. I really should do more. But there are people who know like 20, 30 languages, and there are people that are learning their very first one, and it's really great to be able to help people who are just sort of starting out and give them resources. And it's really inspiring to read, other people who are, on their sixth language and, just rock hard.
And you see so many different applications. It's not just for diaries or logs. It's also for, you have any questions, or is there some parts of the language that just doesn't make sense for you? Then maybe somebody can jump in quickly and give you.
Yeah, we get that a lot. Yeah, lots of help with grammar, and so we have practical questions, and then we get the sort of esoteric questions like, well, if an alien landed, would they be able to speak our language? And then those threads will go on for days and days and days. Really strange arguments about things like that. And it's a fascinating place. Very
What's the
diverse
best language
people.
to learn?
Well, yeah, you get that all the time. In fact, I was going to do an FAQ book, because there's so many questions. You always get the same questions, but everybody has a different take on, how to do it, and what method to use.
Exactly. And meeting in person, I think, also helps with that motivation and getting answers and seeing the screen names in real life, and seeing that it's not all completely made up.
Yeah, I mean, when I went to Bratislava, I mean, I met a load of people in Berlin, but the first time I went to Bratislava, there was just so many people who walked up to me and was like, "Oh, Rick, blah blah blah," and I'm like, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm Laserblade or whatever." "Oh yeah." Because nobody uses very few people other than me use their actual name.
So they have some sort of.
They have avatars and aliases and stuff, and it's like, "Oh, I'm Laserman." "Oh yeah, okay."
No, I think it's really cool, and obviously we haven't been to events in a while, but I can't wait to go back and hang out with people again, see old friends. It becomes almost like a reunion every year, because once
Yeah,
you've
it
been
is.
there
Yeah, and it's sort
once,
of like a family reunion as well, you know.
yeah,
With the people that annoy you. Oh yeah,
there are the
yeah,
drunk uncles as well.
yeah, yeah. You got all of
Uh,
that.
so that's also the case. But no, it's funny because in the beginning I had these language learning ambitions. I was like, I was going to be the next Richard Simcott. You know,
Yeah,
how I felt like I could conquer the world, and then I realized, you know, the languages are sort of secondary for me. Like I
yeah.
really like languages. I'm going to learn languages forever for sure.
Hmm.
But for me, it was more about the community. It was more about talking to like-minded people. It was like almost like a shared interest, but if we had been there talking about, I don't know, remote control cars or something
Hmm.
else, it could have been a similar experience. So the languages are, for me anyway, a little bit
Yeah,
secondary.
yeah, yeah. Because you're just engaging with the people. I mean, for
Yeah.
me, language learning. I mean, that's the whole point. It's probably the reason I can't spell well. I can misspell words in 5 different languages. So, you know, it's pretty impressive.
You
But
put down your badge there.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I guess we
The
should
the thing
quickly
is,
mention. Oh, yeah, go
I
ahead.
like to speak to people.
Yeah.
So conversation exchanges and going to places and talking to people, that's what I like, which is why I don't spell, I can't write it, you know, I'm very poor at grammar and all that, but I can talk to people.
Yeah, I mean that's me too. You know, when you want to learn a language, you really need to sit down and form some goals about it. And
Yeah,
for most people, speaking is 99% of it, you know.
yeah.
And the other things either can come later
Hmm.
or you just don't focus on them, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Like if you don't need to write novels or work in the language, then you know, it's hard to learn how to write, you know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean,
My
we have people on the forum and all they want to do is read. They're not
beautiful, yeah.
interested in speaking. They just want to read Russian, or for example, and that's all
Oh,
they do.
history or
Yeah, and they have no interest whatsoever in speaking it or writing it or doing anything other than reading. And then you have people like me who really are only interested in speaking.
yeah.
You know,
It's
it's just
great.
it's a good mix, and it's nice to meet people with a different perspective.
Yeah, and you get the occasional interesting presentation as well. That's either a really distinguished speaker or some topic you didn't think about, or some new inspiration or ideas. Also at these events. So if anyone's listening out there, don't be put off by the Polyglot tag in the many of the events. Just come anyway. You know.
Yeah, I mean that polyglot tag is a bit off-putting because, to be honest, you need to speak one language at least,
Yeah.
right? But that's it. And I don't mean one additional language.
No,
I
no,
mean
no.
one,
One.
like
Yeah.
the one your mother taught you.
Yeah. Like if you have some ambition of adding to that one, that
Yeah,
adds to the excitement, but you really not
you
necessarily
don't
even
need
need
it. Yeah.
that.
And the good thing about going to a polyglot conference is you're probably going to meet somebody who speaks that one language you do.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
they are going to be really keen to speak to you.
Yeah. So that's the really funny part when there's somebody who's like has the most obscure first language ever
Yeah.
in the region you are in, and then some, I don't know, some American teenager is like, yeah, I want to learn that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you rock up and I don't know, Uzbekistani or something. Like you get a crowd around you, because like, oh
Yeah,
my
yeah.
God, a native speaker.
Yeah, I saw Greenlandic got quite a bit of applause there, and I think also sign language. Funnily enough,
Sign
which is,
languages, yeah,
I
they
guess,
go
ironically
around.
not speaking, but I guess
It's
semantically it is.
communication.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's good.
but people really love that because it's a bit unusual at a
Hmm.
conference like that, and so if you do know a sign language, then you're likely to, like Rick says, attract a crowd
Yeah.
and and get some
Well, you're a native speaker.
right. Yeah, exactly. But
That's what everybody wants.
everyone wants and maybe nice cultural experiences,
Yeah,
going out
yeah.
for meals, and they have some of them have that cultural evening, and it's all good fun
Yeah,
and
yeah,
games.
those bits of the conference are really good and sort of overlooked. One of my favorites, I'm a bit of a foodie, is that at the gathering they used to do foods from your country, food and drink from your country.
Yeah.
So they set up a little table and people bring in, things from Denmark or Russia or
typical products
wherever.
and drinks,
Typical sort of biscuits or cookies or snacks or whatever. I mean, Dave and I said we were just going to go to McDonald's and just put a burger down. There you go. Typical American meal. Here you go, burger and chips and Diet Coke.
That adds to it. You want to make the language like practical and functional. Like why are we learning the language? And there's a whole culture behind it too. It's not just it's not just words on a page or
some audio thing that you listen to in your car. There are people to talk to and things to do and stuff to see, and that's the interesting bit. And I think that does get overlooked a bit. If you the sort of talking heads that you can get on YouTube and things, like, what's the point of learning the language? Well, you want to communicate with people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it for me too. But like you said, there are a lot of people who have different goals, like they want to read or they want to, have a very different set of learning. Like for Chinese, you can learn the characters, right? And you don't learn how to speak, maybe, and you just go for that.
Well, interestingly enough, when I was doing Mandarin, somebody told me, because I was really struggling memorizing all the characters and all that sort of stuff, and they just said, well, why don't you just be illiterate?
Yeah.
Right? Just learn to speak Chinese and just be illiterate. So you can't read or write, but you can talk to people and you can do stuff. And exactly. And I thought, what a good idea. I'll just be illiterate.
That's good.
Because people for hundreds of thousands of years have been illiterate and function very nicely. Thank you very much. So I thought, brilliant idea. I'm going to have a go at that.
Yeah.
I might try that in English as well.
I don't know if I would recommend that one. English is kind of important to my life, at least. But in terms of methodology and like how to go about it, so you were saying that you wasn't sure you could contribute a lot to the average listener, but I think a lot of the people in the community are quite young.
Yeah.
And they might have different, I don't know if it's methods or techniques that are better or easier or more effective at that age.
Well, I think basically what tends to happen, especially what I've seen on the forum, is it's a personality thing. Some things will work well for one person and they'll be horrendously difficult for someone else. I can't, so there's a guy, Peter, who lives in Australia, and he studies at his desk consistently every day in, day out. He studies grammar and all this sort of stuff. And that would just drive me crazy. But I speak to people. He doesn't really ever speak to people, but he does pronunciation practice, and his speeches of speaking, he's really good. But if you're young and you're just starting out, then I would say try all the different methods. So try the listening and reading, try the book study, try the Pimsleur audio only stuff, try all of these different things, because something's going to click with you and you'll do it. Because if you're not enjoying it, you ain't going to do it. So you got to find something that's pleasurable in this activity for yourself while you're doing it. Because otherwise it's a long, hard slog to, if you don't enjoy it, then you might as well just not even bother starting. So just try and find something that's enjoyable, and you will. If you do different stuff, you'll watch movies. It might be your thing is watching movies, and off you go. So try them all. That's all I can say. And
I'm always surprised by how many people talk about reading. And if you ask someone, well, what do you like to do in your native language, and they don't say reading, then, well, how are you expecting to enjoy it when you don't understand anything? If you don't enjoy it when you understand everything, you're probably not going to enjoy it that much if you don't understand a single thing. So that's the one that got me too, because why do we all think that? Well, in school, the only way we learn was from textbooks. The teachers are basically just reciting the textbooks more or less, unless you happen to have a good teacher who could bring some life into it. But and so when you go as an independent language learner outside of school, it's very natural to just go into your local bookstore, Barnes and Noble or whatever, and pick up the whatever self-study course book is available, and
Yeah.
you just do a few pages and then you give it up and you think, oh, I'm a terrible language learner, but it's really just because of the materials.
We have a really good post on the forum, which is a really long-term member, and his nickname's Iguanodon, Iguanamon actually, because he lives in like Jamaica. But anyway, he wrote this thing about the multi-track approach, and we always tend to recommend people read that because he wrote a nice long post about how to do it, and he's just saying multi-track. So buy yourself that Asimil textbook, but don't make that the only thing you do. Get yourself an Anki flash deck card. Get yourself some songs to listen to.
Yeah.
Get yourself a couple movies to watch, and just, move your way around. And when you get bored with the textbook, move on to the flashcards. When you're bored of that, go back and flip around. Spend 10 or 20 minutes doing each, but you don't burn out doing a single method. So that is one of the approaches we almost always recommend. Try and do multiple things rather than trying to just get a textbook, because you're probably not gonna. Don't get me wrong, textbooks are great. Like, publishers spend a lot of money making sure that these things will bring you up to a certain level, but it's the boredom factor that gets most people.
Yeah, the most effective method is the one that gets done, right? So
yeah,
if you can watch, I don't know, 100 hours of movies a week in your target language, you'll probably do very well.
Well, we have a thing called the Super Challenge, which one of the ladies who did a few presentations at a couple of the gatherings started, and that's to read 100 books in your target language and watch 100 films.
Wow.
And that's we do that challenge. It's 18 months long, and the most recent one ends in December, and the next one will start in May. So you can feel free to sign up for that. But if you can finish 100 novels in whatever French and watch 100 French films, then you've watched 900 minutes of.
You're probably a genius in language at that
point. You don't have to be a genius, but you will definitely have encountered a lot of words.
Yeah, no, you'll be great at that time. But how do you find yourself? Do you in terms of the keeping motivated and keeping working on your language targets? Does that help you a lot, the challenges, or do you have other ways to kind of improve that?
Well, it's very bad. So I do a podcast as well called the Autodidactic Podcast, which is all about self-learners and autodidactics. And my most recent one was about demotivation. Because I've been this is series 3, and I've been working on a project which I call my destupidification project, to try and make myself a bit smarter and remember, because like when I went to school, there were 9 planets and they seem to have lost a couple, or I don't know, misplaced them or something.
Changed a bit.
Yeah. So I needed to relearn all that sort of stuff. And so I set myself some targets over the season to learn it. But what happened was life interfered. I got a new job, I had to commute, and all sorts of crazy stuff happened. And I got a bit demotivated about how am I going to do all of this? And so I did most recently a podcast on demotivation and what the main demotivators are and what you're going to do about it. But the vast majority for me is to just step back a bit and say, okay, why were you doing this in the first place? And is that still valid reason? Because if it is, well, then I'll just carry back on. But if that reason isn't valid anymore, like, okay, I'm learning this because I was going to go to Poland for 6 months. Well, I'm not doing that anymore. So, my motivation is gone. So, but if the root of your motivation at the beginning is still there, then it's pretty easy to pick it up again. You might just need to take a break, and or it might be that the thing you're using, like this textbook, is annoying you, and you just need to switch it up a bit. So anyway.
Yeah, mix it up. I definitely found myself very demotivated. Obviously, for many people, these are very challenging times.
Yeah.
But pandemics ignored, life is like that, right? Just on a more individual level, you have these ebbs and flows, and
Yeah.
I've moved countries a few times, and every time that happened, it took me a good, I want to say, if not a year, then definitely a few months
Hmm.
to kind of get settled in a way that allowed me to suddenly, okay, now I can take some time to actually do some
Hmm.
non-essential hobbies and studying, because there's so much you need to get done in terms of
Yeah.
admin, and you're reinventing yourself in a way. You're making new social connections. You're finding apartments and
Yeah.
all these things, signing up for taxes and healthcare and all these things.
Yeah.
So I guess my biggest takeaway from all that is, if you find yourself in a situation where you're under a lot of pressure from everywhere, basically, then don't be too hard on yourself. There's no
Most
need.
of the time I find when I'm under pressure, it's self-inflicted. Um, do you know what I mean? It's because it's literally self-inflicted. And one of the conclusions I came to with my destupidification project is I was just trying to do too much. I had
Yeah.
history and literature and math and blah, 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 and I had all of these things. I was going to do all of this, plus I'm going to learn Korean and Mandarin, and I'm going to do this, and I've got this new job, and I'm going to learn this, and I'm going to learn this programming language, and blah, blah, blah. And it's just too much. So
Yeah.
it was all self-inflicted pressure. And as soon as I went, all right, I can't do all of that, and sort of got myself to a sort of normal level of just, okay, I can do these two things and that's it. So
I think that's essential.
and I think everybody does that. Everybody wants to do so much,
Yeah.
but there's only one of you, and there's only 24 hours in a day.
Yeah, and it goes with the same as people who want to learn multiple languages at once. And for me, that's just never really worked that well. Ignoring the confusion between the languages, of course, but I just find that it's better to have a focus language at any
Mm,
given time. And then if you want to dabble a bit or watch a movie in one of your other languages, there's nothing wrong with that. But in terms of like the actual study time and sitting down, you doing your flashcards or whatever
mm,
method you want to use, I only do one at a time.
yeah,
I don't want to do more, because then I know my brain's going to question what I should do at any given time, and
yeah,
then I end up just doing nothing.
yeah, exactly. Well, there's a thing on the forum, we've noticed a trend over the last 10 years plus the how to learn any language, that I don't think we've ever seen a monolingual learner succeed at learning more than one language.
Mm,
Because people come in and they say, I'm going to learn Russian and Spanish and blah, 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 blah. Well, how
it's
many
too
languages do you
much.
know already? None. Well, I know English.
Yeah.
Okay. You need to pick one, because the problem is you don't know how to learn a language yet.
Esperanto.
Well, any language, because you don't know what works for you. You don't know if you're the guy who needs to watch loads of movies, or the person who succeeds with flashcards, or the person who succeeds at textbooks.
Yeah.
You don't know because you've never done it. Now you've done it, so you've got a good idea if you tackle a new language, what works for you. If it's Luca, right, he's going to tackle a new language. He's going to have his set of methods that he uses, and he knows it works well for him.
Mm,
And that's the way he's not going to go off and do something new. He might dabble with, listening and reading or something, but he knows this is my way of learning, and he's going to tackle it that way. But if you're just a monolingual learner and you've never done it before, you don't know how to learn. So the first thing you need to do is learn how to learn a language,
yeah.
and then the others will become easier.
Yeah. But it's a classic thing, though. I mean, people always take on too much in the
Yeah.
beginning, and then they lose interest and tap out. But yeah, I would say stick to one. It's I always remember back to Anthony Lauder's presentation in Budapest, I think it was.
Hmm.
He did this called Polynote,
Yeah.
and
I love Anthony.
the
Yeah.
basically the conclusion is that you can't you cannot learn to speak 10 languages.
Hmm.
You learn 9 and then you add one.
Yeah.
So if you're at 0, you learn 1.
Yeah.
And if you want to get to 5, you learn 4
You start
and
at
then you
4.
add 1. Yeah, exactly. But the point buried in all that meaning is just do one at a time. Like, you can only do one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Human beings cannot do more than one thing at a time. Like if
multitasking is a lie.
Right. If you have a book open about Spanish, there is no physical way to learn Portuguese at the same time. It's just not possible. You know,
you
try and
can't
put
be listening.
No,
you can't
exactly.
be listening to Russian whilst
try doing that.
Mandarin.
That would be, I would be very impressed at how confused people can get listening to
well,
one
most
language.
people can't even study in English whilst having English, or their native language while their native language is on the radio. Like
we're back to it.
Yeah, because it just distracts you. So,
but that also, again, if you don't have good experience studying in school or in college, then you will need to take it quite easy when you do any self-studying as well. It's similar.
Well, that's what when you start doing a sport, right? You don't just step out your house and do a 40-kilometer marathon.
No.
It just doesn't work. You have to build yourself up like that. So there's no point given the amount of times I've seen people go, I'm going to 3 months, I'll know Spanish.
Yeah.
No, you won't.
I did it. You can go on Actual Fluency right now and read my Russian mission blog post.
Yeah.
And it was like a 3-month goal to conversational Russian with no experience in Russian and very limited experience in learning languages for myself.
Yeah. How'd that work out?
At 3 months, I think I could say yes, hello, good day, more or less. So that did not work out. But again, that was when I was moving countries as well. So it was kind of a double whammy. But yeah, I mean, it's also great to be a beginner in many ways because any work you put into it, you get so much back.
Yeah, see, that's the
improves so much. It's like, oh, yesterday I knew no Russian, and today I could say like 3 or 4 sentences, and it's like amazing, right? And then you get to the intermediate stage, and it takes you like a month to add a new word or something that you actually use.
Yeah, we get a lot of people that like to butterfly around different languages, and it's good. It gives you a bit of a taster. I mean, Dave, who we both know, our friend Dave Prine, he is the ultimate at that. He knows a little bit of every language, but he immediately forgets it and then has to relearn it because it doesn't stick. You have to keep going if you want it to stick. And I think he's trying to change, but I don't know if he ever will.
Well, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I've heard, but
that's what they say. Yeah.
I don't know if that's true, but anyway, we're looking forward to the new events to come back in person, and we're obviously looking for the world situation to change. But yeah, I hope that people got a little bit of inspiration of how they can use maybe a forum in their language learning. That's not, I think not everyone would think to do that. So that's a good.
No, I mean, that's part of the things we get. So, I mean, forums are a bit old school now. People like to use Facebook, but we've had people come to the forum from Facebook pages and they get and say how frustrated they are with Facebook because what will happen is you get the same question every week. On the forum, if somebody asks the same question, they just get a link to where that question was asked 200 times before. Nobody will respond to it. You just get, here's the answer to your question. Next time, please use the search function.
Right. Yeah. Well, when you open a subforum, you see all the topics there. So if it's something that you have a specific question about, then it's easier to organize that way. And I think there are some people who would benefit greatly from keeping their own little public diary in there, like a log of their.
A lot of people use the logging just to force themselves because they've publicly committed to something, and they said, I'm going to do this every week and and people go, how did I go last week? Oh crap, I got to write it down. And we do also have study groups, where people are learning like Czech or Russian or French or whatever, and so everybody else who's learning that, they have a little study group. They share resources. Oh, I found this TV show or whatever. So we get a lot of that. We have a whole subgroup just dedicated to groups. So if you're learning Hebrew or ancient Greek or Egyptian, like we got all of that, as well as Russian and like things people speak nowadays.
Great. So it's like an
But
all
yeah,
year round conference almost.
it pretty much is. Yeah. And you will meet people. And then you get to go to one of these polyglot gathering meetings and you actually meet this person in
And there's
face to
a
face, you know,
meet up
3D.
at the Italian restaurant, and Rick will pay for your pizza. And
Yeah. Or we'll go to some pub and get really, really drunk.
yeah, that may or may not have happened.
That
But
may or may not have happened. Yeah.
allegedly. But
Allegedly.
thank you so much for sharing that, Rick. I appreciate that. And
No
thank you
problem.
for being a guinea pig here on the sort of new and improved Actual Fluency Podcast. Or improved, maybe we'll have to see the verdict. But
Well,
new,
I think it's new and improved. It would be great.
new
And I do
medium
look forward
anyway.
to watching videos frequently,
Yeah.
weekly almost.
Well, hopefully. But yeah, so use the forums and come to the conferences. What's your next project, Rick, in terms of languages or any other creative projects?
My wife and I have booked another anniversary trip, and this time we're going to South Korea. So I am trying to learn enough tourist Korean to get myself a train to Pompeii.
And how far away is that, so people can message you? And
right, so that's basically in April next year. So I've got about 6 months to try and but I'm trying to be realistic with my goals, you know. Hello, thank you, you're welcome.
Of course, yeah.
There's the toilet, and can I have a beer? But outside of that, that's pretty much it.
But you know, if you get like that, you know, 20% of the language, it really works in 80% of the situations you're there.
True, yeah. And I think it shows, you know, willing for the cultural thing. You know, I am interested in Korean culture. I do really like it, and so going there and meeting people and being able to talk to them is really you know, it really pumps me up, and I really want to have a go at it. So
I'm sure
we'll
everyone
see.
will love you for trying. They can definitely see you're not Korean, so they appreciate the effort.
Really?
Yeah. So thank you so much, Rick. And do you want to just give people a couple of places they can find out more, learn about you, contact you?
Yeah, sure. So I have a YouTube channel that you can search for, and it's just Rick Dearman. And I have autodidactic.info, which is my podcast for self-learners. And always go to the forum if you want to do languages. And that's not just me, it's 7,000 other people who will help you. So it's forum.language-learners.org.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Rick. And I hope to see you soon in person.
Okay, I look forward to it. See you later. Bye-bye, everybody.